Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. This is crazy to me. And listen, this happens to me every year, so I probably shouldn't be surprised, but it is kind of wild. We're so close to college basketball. And like I said, every year kind of sneaks up on me. You know, it's that time of the season where there's a lot of stuff going on in football. You know, I love to cover both, but college hoops is like, what, 10 days away, 12 days away, something like that, next Monday, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So not this coming Monday, by the way, but the next one. So what I want to do now, we'll probably do a little college hoops on all of the main shows going forward. Let's go ahead and just talk about the biggest storylines coming in. I know you're focused on your team. You've probably forgotten a lot of the stuff that's happened since last year, and you know Torres has the goods. You know I deliver, much like Collie Puffs, by the way. So let's get into what I believe to be the 5 biggest stories in college hoops this year. Cannot believe that we are like 10 days away from the start of college basketball season. Story number 1. It feels obvious to me. It's UConn going for a three-peat, okay? And we are literally, you know, listen, there are times where we think, is this historic? Is that historic? Whatever. Bottom line is UConn going for 3 straight. We have literally in our lifetimes, unless you're like 60 plus, never seen anything like this, okay? Wooden's teams did it back in the day. But listen, even the Christian Laettner Duke team, even the Florida team, I talked about this during the championship run in the spring. Everybody said, oh, UConn's the first team to win a national back-to-back titles since Florida in 07 and 08. That is true, or 06, 07, excuse me. That is true. But even what UConn did last year, we've really never seen before. Because you go back to that Florida team, they returned all 5 starters from the year before. You go back to Duke in 91, 92, they returned 4 or 5 starters. UConn lost 3 of its top 4 players, still won a natty. They're still in the top 5 this year. And I think, listen, I saw him practice. I was sworn to secrecy when I was back into Connecticut, but they have since played an exhibition game. And I'll tell you this, whether it was practice, whether it was the exhibition game, they're going to have a team that's good enough to do it again this year. Now, will they? It remains to be seen. There's 68 teams make the tournament. Only one of them can win it. But do they have a team? Absolutely good enough. I think what's going to be different this year, listen, I don't think they're going to come out of the gate quite like they did a year ago. You got to remember, they ended up with 4 draft picks on that team, 2 lottery picks, 2 fifth-year seniors. That is not who this team is. If you watch the preseason game against Rhode Island, you know, started a true freshman in Liam McNeely, who's now a little bit banged up. Solo Ball, who played limited minutes a year ago. Caravan's back. You know, but Hassan Diarra was the 6th man. So I bring it up because last year they just returned a lot of veterans, a lot of dudes who had played a lot of college basketball, and 2 guys that were ultimately lottery picks, right? So it's going to be different this year. The one thing I will say, they're very clearly deeper. Like, I don't know how Hurley's going to divvy up minutes, divvy up playing time, whatever. Now, you know, he's got that thing rolling where he'll figure it out. And the number one thing he's going to have to say is, you want to play, you got to earn it, you got to work for it. So it's fascinating to see. I cannot wait to see this team. Will they win a 3rd straight title? You know, no one knows. But can they? Oh, that team can. Absolutely. I want to welcome a new sponsor to the Aaron Torres pod, Blue Chew. Fellas, remember back in the day when you were always ready to go? Well, things change. You got a lot on your mind. Your football team isn't very good. Well, here's the good news. That's where Blue Chew comes in. Blue Chew is an online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but at a fraction of the cost and in chewable form. To get started, it's so easy. Just go to BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. The best part, it's all done online. No awkward trip to the doctors, no waiting at the pharmacy, no stink eyes, no raised eyebrows, nothing. Thing is, though, I know a lot of you are probably wondering, Torres, does it actually work? Do you think I need to try it? Well, here's the deal. Try it for a month for free, and I think there will be no turning back, all right? You'll love it. Your partner is going to love it. Your football team may stink, but you'll be rocking like the 85 Bears between the sheets. So go ahead, try it out, and here is the great news. We have a special offer for listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. You can try Blue Chew for free when you use the code Torres at checkout. All you got to do is pay $5 in shipping. Go to bluechew.com, use promo code Torres at checkout. You get Blue Chew for free for a free month, and you only have to pay $5 shipping. Again, visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. Thank you to Blue Chew for sponsoring the Aaron Torres podcast. Let's keep it going. College hoops storyline number 2. New faces and new places, right? You look at all these new coaches, and I think this is absolutely a byproduct of the portal and of NIL. You have a down season or two. You're looking for a way out because the boosters aren't as excited. They don't want to donate quite as much. I get it. If I was writing checks, I would not be happy either. But we know the trickle-down effect. Started SMU firing its head coach. Andy Enfield goes from USC to SMU. Eric Musselman goes from from Arkansas to USC. John Calipari goes from Kentucky to Arkansas. Mark Pope goes from BYU to Kentucky, and the little loop wraps with Kevin Young taking the BYU job. Now, in terms of the new names, new faces, new places, I'm just fascinated by those guys that really had to replace like an entire roster, right? Like I'm not talking Kevin Young, and we had him on the show. He's awesome, great at what he does, but he brings back 4 marquee players that played on that BYU team a year ago. But with Calipari, brings back 1 player at Arkansas. USC, I believe, 1 scholarship player. Kentucky brings back 0 players from a year ago. And then, oh, by the way, you look at somebody like Louisville, Pat Kelsey, who I'm excited about, brings back 0 players from Louisville as well. And so it'll be fascinating to watch how it all unfolds and really who can figure out this flipping an entire roster thing, right? Because there's some stat out there. I forget what it is. I think it was like every team that there wasn't a single team that replaced more than 8 players last year in the portal that made the NCAA tournament. I can't remember the number exactly. I know Memphis was one that missed the tournament. I know that Arkansas was one that missed the tournament. But this year does feel different. I don't think that stat equates to this specific set of circumstances. Calipari's used to flipping over basically an entire roster. I actually think Calipari at Arkansas brings 3 players who have already played for him, which I do think matters. Kentucky, they're veteran. There is no way I see that team missing the tournament. I think they're going to be better than people realize. You keep it going. Musselman's used to flipping over a roster. I don't think it's a big deal for him. But you just talk about the fascinating new names, new places. Cannot wait to see, Calipari's got that big game early against Baylor. By the way, got the charity exhibition on Friday against Kansas. Cannot wait to watch that. And then, of course, Kentucky, they're full speed ahead, all that. So I am so excited for this season ahead. I cannot believe that we are already here. But new faces and new places is number 2, excuse me. Number 3, most notable player in the sport, it's Cooper Flagg. And listen, one thing that I have done throughout the years, and it's not because he's a Duke guy, but it could be any high school player. I always try to temper expectations. It's never as easy as it looks. And very rarely do freshmen come in and absolutely dominate the sport. We've had some. Zion Williamson, Anthony Davis, Derrick Rose back in the day. But the number of guys that actually step in and are awesome is much fewer than you think. Now, I bring that up to say I'm just really excited about the Cooper Flagg experience for 2 different reasons. One, I just appreciate that he's bringing eyeballs to this sport. Playing in that Team USA select team this past summer, those highlights that leaked out, people are invested in how good is this. He might not even be the best freshman in college basketball. Might be Ace Bailey, might be Dylan Harper, who are both playing at Rutgers. But at the same time, I think you got to be excited because he's going to bring so many eyeballs and so much interest to this sport. Is he as good as advertised? And then 2, I think Duke's got a really interesting group around him. John Shire, you like him, you hate him, whatever. He put a bunch of veterans around Cooper Flagg, and those veterans kind of accentuate his skill set. A lot of 3-point shooting, a lot of ability, a lot of, so Cooper Flagg is kind of a playmaker at 6'8", 6'9". He's got a lot of dudes around him that are going to help. Sion James from Tulane is a very good player. Some of the other transfers, some of the other freshmen. So that Cooper Flagg experience to me is awesome. I cannot wait to see. By the way, you're always welcome to drop your thoughts on the college hoop season ahead in the comment section. Let's get to number 4. I'll tell you this, in the era of super conferences, I'm just fascinated about these loaded conferences where you just see so much talent. The SEC and the Big 12 specifically are by far the two best conferences to me. And I think what's interesting to me is we're kind of seeing it in football right now, right? Is somebody's got to finish in 16th in the SEC. Somebody's got to finish 18th in the Big 10. And what does that mean for the whole ecosystem of college basketball? By the way, I think what's going to be fascinating this year, there's teams that are going to finish 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th in a conference that are potentially good enough to make a Final Four. I don't want to say to win a national championship, but maybe somewhere close. When I look at the Big 12, that league is stacked, okay? And my final top 25, and by the way, I had the same top 10 as the AP. I had 5 Big 12 teams in my top 10. Kansas, Houston, Iowa State, Baylor, now Arizona. Oh, by the way, I have Kansas State and BYU also at my top 25. I don't include Cincinnati and Texas Tech, which did make the preseason top 25. So that's 9 teams right there that everybody pretty much universally likes in that conference. Doesn't include, somebody's going to sneak up, somebody's going to surprise some people, whatever. But what happens in that league? Who steps up? But who is that team that loses 3 out of 4 that's actually pretty good? That actually is better than people realize. Fascinated to see that. And the SEC, it's much the same. The SEC, I believe I finished with 6 teams in my top 25. Let me pull it up really quick. I did have in my final top 25, I had Bama. Let's see here. I had Bama, Arkansas, Auburn, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Florida. That's 6. Texas and Texas A&M both made the AP top 25. They were not in the AT top 25. So that's 8 teams right there. Doesn't include Ole Miss, by the way, Ole Miss also made the top 25. Mississippi State's going to be good. I think Missouri is going to be improved. Like, you look at that league is going to be insane. And again, I think there's teams that are going to finish 8-8 that feel pretty good. I'll give you a quick side story, and I want to get to my last one, and maybe even some questions or comments depending. Is that you look at the Big 12, or you look at the SEC, excuse me. And I just think there's a lot of really good teams, really interesting teams. And the story that I was going to tell was, I remember talking to a Big 12 coach like 3-4 years ago, and he finished like 9-9 and then made a run in the tournament. And I was like, what's the secret? How did you have success? And he basically said, like, Torres, we were always good. It's just you can't win like 5 of 6 in the Big 12. It just can't happen. There were too many good teams, too many tough venues. We knew we were good. We knew it would be easier once we got to the NCAA tournament than it was in the Big 12. Kind of funny. I remember Jim Calhoun said that. They win the title in 2011. He said winning the Big East this year was harder than winning the Big 12 or winning the Big East. Winning the NCAA tournament was harder than winning the Big East. So I bring it up. Apparently, I'm having microphone issues again. I apologize. We'll get this figured out after the show. But bottom line is SEC, Big 12 are totally stacked. And then finally, I do want to talk a little bit about the dark side of expanded conferences. And it's like I said, somebody's got to finish in 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 15th, 18th in some leagues. And how does that impact, again, the ecosystem of college basketball? Because I think we're seeing it in college football right now. And this goes back to when these realignment decisions were made. I can go back to the day that we found out that Texas and Oklahoma were going to the SEC. And I said, from the Texas-Oklahoma perspective, I don't know why you would want to do it. Listen, we know the reason is money. But why would you want to do it if you're Texas and Oklahoma? You have a sweetheart deal in the Big 12. This was before a 12-team playoff in football. And then I said, if you're Kentucky, Auburn, Vandy, whoever, why do you want this? Because when you bring in more teams, it just knocks teams down the pecking order. And in college football, we've seen it's not fun to be a Kentucky fan right now. No disrespect. It's not fun to be an Auburn fan. It's not fun to be an Oklahoma fan. When you have a 16-team league, here's a crazy stat for you. Somebody's got to finish in 16th. And so, I understood, but I never understood why everybody was in such a rush to expand just to add a couple dollars and cents to your checkbook. It's like, if you get a fire coach every 3 years, what are you excited about? And I think we're going to see that in college basketball this year. You look at some of these conferences, look at the SEC. I think Porter Moser is a pretty good coach. He has struggled for a couple years at Oklahoma. If it does not go well this year, he's probably getting fired. And I don't think he's a bad coach. Matt McMahon at LSU, we've had him on the show. I don't think he's a bad coach, but somebody's got to finish in 16th place in the SEC. And if you do, you're probably getting fired. And if you're not getting fired, it's, you're on a short leash going into the next year. So that is what I'm excited about college hoops.